Today you're going to learn how to prepare your baby or toddler for night weaning. And I specifically say baby or toddler because the preparation part for babies and toddlers are very different just because babies and toddlers are so different developmentally. So when I say babies, they are from 12 months to 18 months, and when I say toddlers, it starts from 18 months up to 4 years. Before we get into this topic, I want to make sure that as a holistic sleep coach, I tell you that I don't recommend night weaning for babies younger than 12 months because they need night feeds. It's really important for their brain development. At the same time, if you're someone who's looking to move feeds away from sleep, that's something you can do, and you can keep watching this video because this might be helpful for you too. Here's how I know about this topic. I'm a holistic sleep coach and an infant feeding coach, and I'm also a twin mom to 2 years old boys. So I know what you're going through and I can help you out here. I feel all parents and all moms specifically needs to know is that feeding to sleep is the most biological normal thing, and honestly it's the most easiest way. So if you're someone who is fine with feeding to sleep, your baby, just keep doing that. Don't worry about the habits, you can always change. And if you're someone who's really ready for the change, just know that it takes time. It's normal for your baby to not like the changes, and obviously they will show that in their own way. Don't expect your baby or your toddler to just accept that suddenly you don't want to feed them overnight. So that change will take time. The transition is not going to be the most easiest, and I know that you don't want to hear that from me, but that's the honest part of it. So let's come back to the topic: how to prepare your baby or your toddler for night weaning. The first one is get your partner into the play mode. So the second point is, I'm also kind of reading it so that I don't miss out points. I'm not a YouTube expert. Okay, so the second point is play. So I think everyone knows that how babies and toddlers learn a lot from playing, and that's the best way to teach them something. So, it could be through books. There are a lot of weaning books I recommend them on my description. In the description of this video, you can just check it out. They're amazing. I do recommend these to my one-on-one clients. So for sure, these are amazing books. And that's the first, through books. Second is through play. You can just pretend play. You can have a doll which you can keep telling the doll that your toddler is getting he's becoming a big boy and he doesn't need milk, in whatever language you say that, anymore, and something like that. But you're not talking to your toddler, you're talking to the doll or whatever. And the third way is just to have the conversation. Keep telling, keep talking to your toddler and your baby. And I know there's a difference between baby and toddler because babies might not have that kind of grasping power when it comes to language, but I would still talk to them as if they are tiny adults, and I would still tell them that what's going to happen, and all this is going to lay a very good foundation. Okay, so the third point is separating feeds from the sleep, and this is not only for the moms who want to night wean, but also for moms who want to separate sleeping and feeding, because maybe they also want someone else to help them out when it comes to sleep, and that's very justifiable. So okay, the first step in this would be, try to feed your baby after the naps and not before the naps. And try to make feeding the first part of your bedtime routine and not the last. So the first part of your bedtime routine will be feeding, and then you will do all the other parts, all the other elements will come in, and then you will make your baby sleep with a different sleep association and not feeding. And for specifically for those who want to night wean, try to have feeding a different separate feeding space. That would be a feeding chair which is not in the room. We want to make sure that we are trying to separate feeding, room and sleep. And when you do it in some other place, slowly you can try to you're trying to prepare your toddler or your child or your baby that there is a separation between feeding, room and sleeping. So you can do it somewhere else, some outside, like outside your room, in a designated chair, and yeah, that could be your feeding chair. Okay, so the fourth point being temperament, and this is something I love the topic to talk about because I have twins and I see how totally different temperament they have and how sleep and even just boundaries work with them so differently. Like I'm the same mom to them, obviously. At the same time, I am disciplining or parenting at the same time, but I still have to use different parenting techniques with each of them because of the temperament. So, the first step is try to understand what your child's temperament is. Are they someone who's a little bit chill and you think they can, take these kind of sudden changes? Are they sensitive ones? Because if they're sensitive ones, cold turkey is not an option when it comes to night weaning. They need a little bit more time, they need transition time. And are they strong willed type? Because if they're strong willed, cold turkey is the answer, because when you kind of start reducing the number of feeds or reducing the length of feeds, which I will talk about in my next videos, these are just different strategies to night wean. But when you do this with a strong willed child, they just don't understand what's happening, because they get confused that, okay, why is that I get feed at one time but I don't get it the other time. So with strong willed child, especially toddlers, I generally recommend cold turkey with them. But that's something which we talk later. So the first step for you is to just understand what kind of temperament your child has. The fifth point is boundaries. And I think specifically for toddler moms, how hard it is to hold a boundary with toddlers, because they have a lot of meltdowns. And when it comes to something which they really, really like, the meltdowns are much more intense. So here's what you need to do. While you're preparing your toddler for night weaning, try to limit day feeds if you have any during the day. And this will be like a practice session for your toddler, that they are just practicing that when they ask for a feed and you say no, they need to live with that. And I know it sounds very brutal, but that's how it works, right? So this is something which I really highly recommend for night weaning toddlers, is start holding boundaries during the day for day feeds. And honestly, it's not about just the feeds, but just any boundaries. This way your toddler will learn that no means no. Second, you will learn how to co-regulate your toddler when they have meltdown. And remember, meltdowns during the day is different, but meltdown during the night is completely different, because we as parents are very tired and we sometimes just cannot hold that boundary anymore and we give up. I'm not saying it's wrong to give up. It's fine if you say, okay, you know what, I cannot do it, I'm going to give up and I will still night feed my toddler. That's fine, that's completely fine. But I just want you to prepare yourself that, are you able to hold boundaries during the day? Because this is going to happen during the night when you say no. So these are my 5 tips to prepare your baby or your toddler for the night weaning. And I would start implementing these 5 tips already. And I would do it maybe for a week or even 2 weeks. That would be much better. So next week, I will be talking about different weaning strategies depending on the age, temperament, and family dynamics. So subscribe so that you don't miss my videos. If you're interested about getting support from me about night weaning your baby or toddler, and you need to ask me personal questions or doubts, I have created a support group for moms who are planning to night wean, and I'm supporting them. There are almost 8 of them, so there are only 2 spots left. So if you are interested, please comment below, or you can also check out my page on Instagram and DM me on the Instagram. Bye, see you next week.